What does it look like when you leave your first love? It means that you have to find time for him when you have time for other things. Most folk don't have to find time for this show or that show, because it's understood that when that time comes and that show is on, I'm there. The reason why we have to find time for God is because he's not first love. He's when I get around to your love. It has to do with priority. He wants to know he's first, that he has been relationally prioritized, not just programmatically included. First love is where there is a fire for him. We're now at the sixth church that the Apostle John has written, the church at Philadelphia. This is the first Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. This Philadelphia, in verse 7 of Revelation 3, is located some 30 miles southeast of Sardis, a great commercial city with a major trade route plagued often with earthquakes. That was the nature of this city. Inside this city was a small church, a small gathering of believers, Philadelphia Bible Fellowship. Verse 7, he who is holy, who is true, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, and who shuts and no one opens, says this. So before we get into all the idiosyncrasies of what he has to say to this church, he wants to give another description of himself, which he has done in each of these churches. And he describes himself as he who is holy and true. Holy means to be set apart as unique, special, or one of a kind. Holy means you're not to be put in a class with anything else. I'm not just a good person. I'm not just a great prophet. I am holy. I am separate. I am one of a kind. I am unique. I'm in a class by myself. In Isaiah 40, verse 25, the Bible says God is holy. So when Jesus declares himself to be holy, he declares himself to be God. So we're not just talking about another name or one of the crowd. He says, I am unique, and therefore must be viewed and treated uniquely. I am not only holy, I'm also true. Truth has to do with ultimate reality. I'm the real deal. Anything that contradicts me is false and is a lie and cannot be trusted. So you are to measure everything by the truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. So everything is to be measured by its inconsistency and compatibility to me. And if it's incompatible and inconsistent with me, it's wrong no matter who told it to you, how long you believed it, and how well you know it. I am truth. I am holy and true. Not only am I unique and set apart, not only am I ultimate reality, but now he gets to the nitty-gritty. He says, I have the key of David. I have the key of David. Now, to appreciate what he's talking about, this is drawn from Isaiah chapter 22, verses 15 to 25. In Isaiah chapter 22, verses 15 to 25, the steward of the house of David, the kingdom, house of David, David was the king of Israel. It uses that to speak of the kingdom. The key belonged to this steward, but the steward did not do the right job. So he was fired. And when he was fired, a new steward replaced him. This new steward was Eliakim, and Eliakim was given the key to the kingdom. Not given a key, he was given the key. Jesus says, I possess the key of the king of David, of the kingdom of David. That is, I have the kingdom key. Notice it's a single key because it's a master key. Anybody who possesses a master key can get in any door. All the doors are available to him because he has a master key. So when the Bible speaks of the key, it speaks of two things: access and authority. So Jesus claims access to any door and authority over every door. Let me say that again. Jesus, the one with the key, the master key, has access to every door, which is what a master key gives you, and authority over every door, which is why he says he can open the doors he wants to open and lock the doors he wants to stay locked, because he is in charge. Now, if you and I don't get that, we're going to think people are in charge. We're going to think power brokers are in charge. We're going to think folk with money are in charge. We're going to think folk with clout are in charge. They may have a key, but they don't have a master key. They may have a key to a door, they don't have a key to every door. Jesus says, I control the kingdom because I have control of the master key. Or as he says in Matthew 28, verse 19, he says, all authority has been given to me, not only in the sweet by and by, but in the nasty here and now. He says, all authority is given to me in heaven and on earth. To put it in everyday language, I got the key, so I'm in charge. I run the show. Now, in Matthew chapter 16, he says, I'm going to build my church, and I will give my church the keys to the kingdom. Watch this now. Jesus says, I have the master key. That's one key that can unlock any door. But I'm going to give to my people, the church, I'm going to give them the keys, plural, to the kingdom. So what he's given us is multiple keys to multiple doors, while he possesses the master key to every door. So he has the key, we have the keys. How does it work? When you use the right key, he'll back it up with the master key. But when you use the wrong key, the master key can't back you up, because the master key can only be consistent with the keys that he's given us. Let me put it another way. If you skip God's way to get it done, whatever it is you're trying to get done, then don't just call on God to use his master key when you've ignored the key he gave you. He does not want you to skip the responsibility he's given you and simply call on him because he got the master key. He wants to know your keys are consistent with his key. I will give you the keys to the kingdom. Well, what is that? It's authority. I'm going to share my authority with you when you are consistent with me. Authority, kingdom, means to rule. So God wants to rule not only in heaven, but in history through the person of Jesus Christ, and he possesses the key. See, the reason why we are not seeing more of the master key is because God is not seeing more of the use of us using the right key. See, we go and use the world's key to unlock heaven. Those keys don't fit in that lock. We get all shook up about people. Oh, he got the power to let me in or to lock me out. He got the power to raise me or to put me down. He's got the power, or she's got the power to fire me or hire me. They got the power. They got all the power. Jesus said, but I got the master key. And when I open the door, I don't care who they are, where they come from, how much they have, what degrees they possess. When I have the key, if I decide to open that door, nobody gonna shut a door I open. And if I decide to lock them up, they're not gonna be able to get back in because I'm in charge here. I've got the key to the kingdom. See, we fear the wrong folk. We fear folk because they got a name. We fear folk because they got some money. We fear folk because they got some power. But you are related to the one who's got the key of David. Ultimate authority. Final say-so. So what's the problem? He says in verse 8, I know your deeds. Behold, I have put before you an open door which no one can shut. Because you have little power and have kept my word and have not denied my name. Oh, watch it. In order for his key to work, for you, for me, and for his church, he says, you must have kept my word, obeyed me, and not denied my name. So one of the reasons many believers are not seeing God come through is because they do not keep his word. They come to church and hear it, but they do not keep his word, and or they deny his name. They don't want to be publicly associated with him. He says to them, you have little power. He says, I have set before you an open door. Even though folks say you are a nothing and a nobody, I have set before you an open door, and when I open this bad boy up for you, the folk with the name, with the money, and with the power will not be able to shut it. But the way I will open the door, and the reason I will open the door for you, your life, your world, and your ministry is because you have obeyed my word and have not denied my name. See, we got folk wanting to God open doors while they disobey him. We got folk wanting God to open doors while they are ashamed to bear his name. Notice, you can't deny his name. You can talk about God all you want. You can talk about God this and God that. That's not his name. His name is the Lord Jesus Christ, the second person of the Trinity, not this generic God. No. Yeah, God is there, but God has bequeathed or delegated everything to his son. It is at the name of Jesus every knee bow and every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord to the glory of the Father. So if folk don't know your relationship to Jesus, you have denied his name, even though you may be talking about God bless you all day long. You have not denied my name. Jesus says, when you deny me on earth, I will deny you before my Father who is in heaven. When you confess me on earth, I will confess you before my Father who is in heaven. So if you are ashamed of Jesus Christ and don't want to be publicly associated with him, forget open doors. You can open your own door. Jesus says, folk may not know who you are, but you know him. You confess him. You obey him. He got a master key. And nothing will make the Lord more real to you than when he opens things up, you were too powerless to open up on your own because you had little power, little notoriety, little name recognition. Jesus says, even though you have little power, I'm going to open up a door for you. Because you have obeyed me and you have not denied my name. If God has blessed you, praise God. If God has given you a great job, bless God. If God has given you a big house, bless God. If God has given you a nice car, bless God. If God has given you great clothes, bless God. Just so long as you know better than the widow on fixed income, because God will open doors for those with little power. He says in verse 9, behold, you have kept the word of my perseverance, and I will also keep you from the hour of testing, the hour that is about to come upon the whole world. He told him in verse 9, behold, I've caused those in the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. I will make them come and bow down at your feet and make them know that I have loved you. Whoa. He said, all those false folk out there, synagogue of Satan, they go to church, synagogue, but they're of the devil. Because just because you're in church, synagogue, doesn't mean you of the Lord. There is a synagogue of Satan. All right? So the religious talk doesn't mean a thing. He says, but I'm going to let them know that I have loved you. Even though you got a little power, I'm going to let them know you got more power than you look like you have. He says, in the synagogue of Satan is making it tough for you, but I can watch this, I can keep you from the hour of testing. He calls it you in a test. Watch this. So if you're in a situation and the door has not yet opened, he says, consider it a test. And he says, and I'm going to walk you through the test until I reverse it. He says, I'm going to make your enemies your footstool. Ooh. Nothing makes God real than when he reverses the irreversible. Nothing makes God more real than when he flips something that looked unflippable. Nothing made God so powerful to you when there was no way out. You were trapped. The devil looked like he was running the whole show. And then he reverses it. But you may say, but I don't see him doing anything. Oh yeah, well look at the next verse. He says, you're going through this test and I'm going to keep you through this hour, but I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have so that no one will take your crown. Oh, I love this word. I am coming quickly. That means suddenly. That means unexpectedly. That means out of nowhere. See, when God is silent, that doesn't mean he's still. I know you don't see him doing anything. I know it looks like you just waiting for nothing. But God likes to come in suddenly. He likes to break in when you didn't expect it, when you didn't think there was any way that this thing could ever get better, that this trial could ever end. He loves to do something suddenly. And the reason why he likes to do things quickly or suddenly is so that when it happens, there is no debate on who caused it to take place. Because it came out of nowhere. Quickly. You wonder, where did that come from? And it becomes inextricably clear that this was heaven invading history. Just obey him. Don't deny his name. And then wait for the Lord, I say. Wait upon the Lord. Because he comes suddenly. And once you have this perspective, you're free. Because you know them people don't have the last say. They have a say, they don't have the say. They look like they're running the show until God swoops in on them and changes them or changes their mind or changes you or changes the circumstances. See, it all depends on your perspective. It all depends on how you see things. I know the devil may be nipping at you. The synagogue of Satan may be nipping at you. But when you got God's perspective, it changes what you're looking at. And so, I'm coming quickly. I'm going to come suddenly. So what did he tell you to do in verse 11? Hold fast. Hold fast. I know you want to give up. I know you want to quit. I know you're tired. He says, hold fast. Make sure you're obeying and not denying. You hold fast to your obedience and non-denial, and at his time, suddenly. Don't let him take your crown. That's the right to rule. Even small folk have been called to rule. And now he gives us his final statement. He who overcomes what? The tendency to give up. He who overcomes the tendencies to stop obeying and to stop denying. He who overcomes that and says, God, as the old folks say, I'm going to hold on till my change comes. You know, it's rough, it's tough, but I believe you and not my circumstances as the final arbiter of my situation. He says, you hold on. He who overcomes, look at this, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. He will not go out from it anymore. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and my new name. You see the word, that word? Name. First of all, he says, I'm going to make you a pillar. A pillar, it holds a building up. I'm going to make you a pillar in my temple. A temple is God's house. The pillars are located in God's house. Galatians 2:9 says that Peter, James, and John were the pillar of the church. They were holding up the church. In other words, he speaks of these people who overcome the propensity to give up as being in closest proximity to God. And he says for these folk who are overcomers and who are in close proximity to God, they will have a name. And he keeps saying name in verse 12 over and over again. He keeps talking about name of this and name of that, name of this and name of that. He says you will have a name in the New Jerusalem. Let's get something straight. Everybody is not equal in heaven. Okay, let's get this straight. Okay, they don't exude the same experience because they don't have the same relationship. Jesus said in St. John chapter 2, verses 23 to 25, it says, many believed on him. Many believed on him, but he would not commit himself to them because he knew what was in them. They got saved, but they had not yet got committed. They were on their way to heaven, but he couldn't use them on earth. They were forgiven for their sins, but they didn't want folk to know that they were Christians. They went to church, but they wouldn't obey the word. So they believed in him, but he would make no commitment to them. There are a lot of Christians who Jesus is just not deeply committed to in a practical way because they want to be 40-watt Christians expecting a 100-watt blessing. And it doesn't work that way. He wants to know that you're all in, that you're a full-time Christian, not a part-time saint. He wants to know that you will not deny him and that you will obey what he has commanded. And he says to that one, I will give him a name. You know, when people go to the Cowboy game, and they go to the Cowboy game, there are folks who are sitting in the stands. We don't know their name. Now, they're in the location, but we don't know their name. In fact, that's the majority of the folk who are in the building. The majority of the folk in the building are in the stands, and they're just part of the crowd, and we don't know their names. Now, when it comes to the players, we know their names kind of, sort of. Not only do you have the folk in the crowd and the folks on the team, some more nameless than others, some with a higher name, you got the Ring of Honor. In the Ring of Honor, those are folk who've made a name. You see, the players come and go, but the folks in the Ring of Honor stay there because over time they held fast. Over time they played the game. Over time they didn't quit when they were injured. Over time they stayed committed to the task. In fact, their name is not only in the Ring of Honor, their name is in Canton, Ohio, in a bust in the Canton Hall of Fame, so that generation after generation will know who their name was. God has a lot of Christians that are in the stands. They just show up to watch the game. All they want to see is what the choir is singing and what the preacher is preaching, and they just come for the show. Now, folk in the crowd don't get dirty, don't incur responsibility, don't get knocked down, don't get blocked, don't get tackled, because they're not there to participate. They're just there to watch the show. But then there are some folk in the kingdom of God who don't want to just stay in the stands. They want to get on the field. They serve in ministry. They help other people. They give to the advancement of the cause of the Lord. And then you got some superstars. Those are the Ring of Honors. Oh, it's not just the folk who's people who you know their name. It's folk who are the unknown folk, but you can count on them. You can depend on them because they are forever holding their role, loving the Lord, serving the saints, giving to the Lord, and giving glory in their witness for the Lord. So I want to challenge you today. If you want God to put you in the Ring of Honor, if you want when he hears you and sees you to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. If you want him to call you out of the crowd and let all of heaven know you're one of his choicest servants, I challenge you to leave the stands, to come on the field. Now, I want to tell you the truth. You're going to get blocked a little bit on the field. You're going to get tackled a little bit on the field. But when they start handing out Super Bowl rings, you're going to get a Super Bowl ring because you were a Super Bowl saint. So let's get busy glorifying the Lord, obeying the Lord, not denying the Lord. Because if you are an obedient saint who does not deny him, you are an overcomer. Throughout Scripture, God has called on his people to demonstrate their commitment with their feet. That is, through their obedience. He doesn't just want to hear it from our mouths, he wants to see it in our movement. He doesn't want to just hear it from our lips, he wants to see it in our life. He doesn't want to just hear it from our talk, he wants to see it in our walk. Obedience is the test of authentic commitment. Anybody can talk a good game, anybody can rap great information. But if your performance is not in sync with your proclamation, then that is failure to the nth degree. Saying amen on Sunday is not the same as living amen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Two different things. That's why Jesus often said they affirm me with their lips. They talk a good game, but they don't follow through. They don't act on it. Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So you can have butterflies all in your stomach about how much you love Jesus. But he says, if you don't obey me, you really don't love me. You just got some, maybe you ate too much pizza, but it's not the love I'm asking for. So in what way are we not obeying the Lord? Where we know we're violating his word and his will, begin to make those adjustments. Because as 1 John 2 says, many believed in him, but he wouldn't commit himself to them because he knew they weren't ready to go all the way. Go all the way so you can experience what it's like when he goes all the way with you. I'm sure you've had this experience of putting some silverware in a glass, a fork, a knife, or a spoon, having the light come through the glass and making it look like the silverware was bent. It wasn't bent, but what you saw was a process called refraction. Refraction is where when the light hits something immersed in water, it can create a distortion called refraction. The spoon or the knife or the fork is not bent, but it appears to be bent because of the environment in which it is in. We live in a world that creates a refraction, a distortion. It can so turn things to make things that are straight look crooked, and make things that are crooked appear to be straight. And so, living in an upside-down world, we often become upside-down people, thinking we know the right way and going the wrong way, having the right way, choosing the wrong way. In fact, the world can make it look like a straight Christian is a crooked person, or that a crooked person is a straight person. It can refract reality. God is giving us reality, and he wants you to know that you don't wrestle against flesh and blood. The physical world is not your problem. It's merely the vehicle for your problem. Because he says in verse 12, we wrestle against principalities and powers and forces of wickedness that are located in heavenly places, or the spiritual realm. That is, the physical world gives you the fruit. The spiritual world is the root. So if you address the fruit of what the five senses brings to you, flesh and blood, without addressing the root of the spiritual world from which it emanates, you will forever, I will forever, we will forever be doing patchwork on the physical because we have never addressed the cause in the spiritual. If you and I, if we would ever take seriously the invisible spiritual realm, we would fare much better in the visible physical realm. But because of the process of refraction, distortion, the spiritual realm has been made to be seen as unreal and out there. Because after all, we operate in the world of the five senses. The five senses are very real and very necessary, but they're not the starting point for the Christian who's been seated with Christ in heavenly places. That's not where we start. That's what we deal with, but that's not where we start. The moment you start there, you're in a refracted scenario because you're not getting things as they truly are, you're getting them as they appear to be. He has said that God has provided armament for us to wear as we deal with spiritual battles in life. In verse 14, he started off with the belt of truth. Truth is God-based knowledge. It is knowledge from God's perspective. It's God's viewpoint on a matter. Truth is God's viewpoint on a matter. That's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Truth is an absolute objective standard by which reality is to be measured. Something is real based on how God views it, not even based on how you see it. If you're going to win in the spiritual realm, truth must be worn continuously as a belt, because Satan is a liar, and if he knows you're not committed to truth, he will suck you dry based on half-truths or full lies. He then says, put on the breastplate of righteousness. That is, tether your rightness to the truth. The breastplate, the chest, because in the chest is the heart. Have your heart committed to right based on the truth that you now concur with. And then last time we saw in verse 15, he says, have your feet in the gospel of peace. True peace, lasting peace, comes not from a pill, it comes from the gospel. It is embedded into the gospel because the gospel has the grace of God within it, which has been deposited into the spirit that's lodged in your soul. Your soul is lodged in your body. In the pill of your spirit is all the peace you've been looking for, that you've been paying for out there. He says the peace you're looking for is in the pill called the gospel. But if you don't know the gospel, or you don't know how to access the gospel, then the peace that the gospel holds, you don't experience. So you go out looking for pseudo peace, false peace, temporary peace, or you settle for chaos management. Chaos management, not authentic peace. And I said, you always know whether it's God's peace because you don't understand why you have it, given the mess you're in. It's a peace, the Bible says, that passes understanding. You say, well, how do I access all of this that you tell me I have if I'm a Christian? My assumption is that you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you have nothing to access. But if you are a Christian, if you have responded to Jesus Christ, how do I access this victorious living in the midst of the spiritual battle that I'm experiencing in my physical world? How do I access it? He answers that in verse 16. He says, in addition to all, taking up the shield of faith, with which you will be able to extinguish all the fiery darts of the evil one. He introduces us to the next piece of armor called the shield of faith, or let's put it another way, the shield which is faith. The shield is actually faith itself. I want to today clarify faith for you, because many of us have misunderstood faith, misused faith, misunderstand faith, and yet faith is critical. Because he says, leading off verse 16, in addition to all. In other words, and I know I've told you a lot so far, but if you grab this one, you got it all. This one, he says, is key. Faith. In addition to all, take up the shield of faith. Now, notice the verb, take up. The first three pieces of armor, he didn't use the word take. He uses the word to be. In the text, it says having in verse 14 and 15, having the belt of truth, having the breastplate of righteousness, having the shoes of the gospel. But now he switches verbs. The first three are something you wear all the time. You keep truth with you. You keep righteousness with you. You keep the peace of God with you. You keep those with you. But now when he comes to this next piece, the shield of faith, he says that one you pick up. You take. The first three you keep with you all the time. The last three you pick up on an as-need basis. It's like a baseball player. He wears his baseball suit during a baseball game. He never takes off his uniform, but he picks up the bat when it's time for him to bat. He picks up the glove when it's time to go to the field. In other words, he picks up those as needed. The first three you keep with you. You never take them off. You never change those clothes. But now you must take up the shield of faith. Please notice, you got to take it up. God won't take it up for you. This is your responsibility. He calls it a shield of faith. A Roman soldier had a shield. When it was time for him to fight, he would take his shield. The shield was 2.5 feet wide, 4 feet long. This shield was so situated that a Roman soldier could crouch down and hide his whole body behind it. In other words, the shield covered all of him. When it was positioned correctly, his full body could hide behind it. In fact, when you see them in battle, sometimes the Roman soldiers would link their shields next to each other and a whole army could crouch down and hide behind it. Because the shield of faith would handle anything that the enemy threw at it, whether it was a javelin or whether it was an arrow. So the reason why this particular armament is so critical is that it covers all of you if you're behind it properly. He says, in addition to all, take up the shield of faith. When do you need to take it up? Well, he's told us earlier, on the evil day. The evil day is the day all hell breaks loose in your life. It is when you're under attack. It is when the finances are so low you don't know how you're going to make it. It is when you've lost your job and there's none in sight. It is when everything is breaking down emotionally. It's the evil day. It is the day when all hell is broken loose in your life. The day of your attack. On that day, you need to be covered by a shield which is called faith. When they launch space capsules into the air and they come back down into the atmosphere, they would burn up except that they have a shield around them. This shield, in light of the heat breaking into our atmosphere, keeps them from burning up. On the evil day, you feel like you're going to burn up. He says, but if you have a shield, you'll make it in an atmosphere of chaos. So the question is now, what is faith? What is faith? Let me give you a simple definition of faith, as simple as I can get it. Faith is acting on the truth. Faith is acting on the truth. Now, if you don't know the truth, or if you don't act on the truth, the word faith is a meaningless phrase. It's talk. Faith is acting on the truth. So in order to have faith, you got to find the truth. And the truth is God's view of a matter. So if you're not interested in discovering God's view on a matter, forget having a discussion about faith. Because faith is only faith when it's tethered to truth. Because when it's tethered to truth, it knows the right decision to make, confirmed by the shoes of peace, because you exercise the real meaning of faith. Faith is merely acting like God is telling the truth. A lot of people talk about faith who are not connected to the truth and wonder why faith isn't working. So guess what they do? They go around looking for more faith, thinking if I can get a little bit more faith, maybe I can get a little bit more help. But you cannot have faith and get help if your faith is not tied to truth. And truth is what God says about a matter. Let me tell you what truth is not, or necessarily not. Faith is not necessarily feelings. You can feel full of faith and have no faith. You can feel faithless and be full of faith. Faith is not based on how you feel. Now, how you feel may be consistent with faith in a given moment, but at another moment, how you feel may have absolutely no correlation to faith whatsoever. Because feelings are circumstantially driven. You feel based on how things are going. If things are going well, I feel good. Dun, 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 dun. If things are not going well, I feel bad because circumstances dictate feelings, and you can't always control that. You can't always control that. I am glad my faith is not tied to my feelings, because then my faith would be as up and down as my feelings are. And we all up and down to various degrees on the feeling side. So I want to get feeling out of the definition of faith, although sometimes it is consistent with faith. Faith is acting on the truth, whether I feel the truth or not, whether I like the truth or not, whether I agree with the truth or not. Faith is acting on it. So you can feel faithish and be faithless. You go to the movie, it's a horror flick. It's a horror flick. You know those monsters aren't real. You know that. You know the zombies coming out of the grave aren't real. Yet you're sitting there, covering your eyes, can't sleep because you remember the show, and you know it's not real. You know that. You knew it before you went in. You knew it while you were watching it. You knew it when you left, and you're still all shook up. That is because the masters of the media so constructed the lie of the horror film to make you feel like it was true, even though intellectually you knew none of that was real. But they manipulated it so and made it seem so real that it governed your feelings. You will never overcome the movie until your mind overcomes your emotions, because your emotions are controlling you based on a lie that the movie perpetuated to you. And as long as they can keep the lie in your mind, they can keep you up at night, and you're being kept up by something you knew wasn't true. When we allow faith to be defined by feelings, we will always be confused. So let's put faith in the objective place where it belongs. I love this. I love this story in Luke 5. Jesus asked Peter, Peter, have you caught anything yet? Peter said, no, we haven't caught anything yet. Jesus says, Peter, why don't you cast your net on the other side? Peter says, Jesus, let me help you here. You stick with preaching. I've been fishing all my life. This is the Zebedee Corporation, and we know fish, you know sermons. He seeks then to instruct Jesus on how fishing works. Jesus, point number one, we have been fishing all night. Okay, so let's get this straight. For 12 hours, we have been out there fishing. They are not biting. So for you to ask us to throw the net in doesn't make sense. Problem number two, we're in shallow water now. We're about to come in. We are not in the place where fish bite. So we've given the time, we've given the expertise, we've studied in school the location, we've got history in this company, we got all this stuff going for us. So Jesus, stick to preaching. We know fish. Jesus says, will you just cast the net on the other side? Peter doesn't feel like it makes sense. His history says it doesn't make sense. His perspective, his company, none of this makes sense. But then he says, but at your word, just because you said it, even though I don't kind of think you know what you're talking about, but because you said it, I'm going to act on what you said, even though my perspective doesn't agree with what you said. I'm going to act. And he threw the net on the other side. When he threw the net on the other side, he got the biggest catch of his fisherman life. It said he got so much catch of fish that it dragged the boat down and the boat was about to sink. He could now build a condo on the Galilee River. He caught so much fish. He discovered on that day a principle of faith that if you and I would ever discover it, it would be transforming in my life. In spite of what I learned, in spite of what my history is, in spite of what my background says, in spite of my education, in spite of all the stuff I have accumulated, in spite of my own perception of my own natural brilliance, if I would simply do what he says, I would discover there is a lot more to this than I ever knew, because I would discover my finiteness and I would discover his infiniteness. I would discover, see, one of the things that's keeping us from experiencing God is we know too much. We know too much. If we were half as educated in the Word as we were in the world, we'd be a lot further. We want a master's degree in our subject, but we want to be dropouts in Scripture. And we wonder why nothing's working, because we don't know enough truth to have faith in it. Faith is acting on the truth, which means I want to know the truth so I can act on it, which exhibits faith so that I can see God move. Now let me explain something now. Faith does not make God move. Let's get this straight. Because if you believe faith makes God move, then you're going to be looking for more faith. You don't need more faith. You have if you're a Christian, you have all the faith you're ever going to need for anything God's going to do with you. Let me help you now. Oh, God's trying to increase my faith. No, he's not. He's trying to increase your knowledge, but you've got plenty of faith. Because Jesus said, if you have faith the grain of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. In other words, a little dab will do you. You don't need more faith. You need more truth. Because if you put a little bit of faith in a whole bunch of truth, that's all you need. Faith does not get God to move. All faith does is access what God has already done. Faith is the point of access, not the point of power. The power is in what God has already done in grace, when he deposited the divine life within you in seed form. As the knowledge of God enters into that seed expands, and all you're doing with faith is withdrawing what grace has already put on deposit. So stop looking for more faith. You don't need more faith. The moment you act on what God says, that's all the faith you need. You got plenty of faith. So you got all the faith you need. Whatever growth your faith needs, it will get from the action you take, not by trying to conjure up more faith, not by trying to whip it up, just trying to whip up faith. When really all you're doing is whipping up emotion. You're not whipping up faith. He says, I want you to have the shield of faith. Faith is your access point, Romans chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. He says faith gives you access to grace, and grace is where God has deposited everything he's going to do for you. Everything God is ever going to do for you, he's already done. He can't do anything more. So even when you say, God bless me, it's kind of we understand what each other means, but all the blessings he's ever going to give you, he's already given you. There's nothing new he can do for you. Your problem, my problem, is withdrawing it, not getting it. It's already given. Faith withdraws it. So here it is. Grace puts on deposit all of God's goodness on your behalf. Faith accesses the deposits. Work proves you're exhibiting faith. Work proves you're exhibiting faith. Faith accesses grace. Grace has on deposit what you're looking for. Works don't get grace, because once you attach works to grace, it's no longer grace. Romans 11:6 says, once it's of works, it's no longer of grace. So works don't give you grace. Works just access faith, and faith accesses grace. That's how it flows. So he says, put on the shield, this covering called faith. Faith is a law, Romans 3:27 says. It's a rule whereby you operate. He says you're not only supposed to get saved by faith. He says in Romans 1, you're supposed to live by faith. In other words, this is supposed to be the way you flow. You're supposed to have a faith walk. That's why the Bible calls it walking by faith. You're supposed to have a flow faith. It's supposed to be the way it's supposed to be your groove. It's supposed to be your zone. It's supposed to be your modus operandi. But it must be linked to truth. Now here it is. Please notice this. I'm explaining faith. Faith, if you want it to be real, watch this now, cannot be limited to your five senses. If you limit faith to your five senses, it won't be real faith. It won't be real faith. Because we're talking about accessing the invisible realm, not the visible realm. So we're not talking about accessing the stuff you can see and touch and taste. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. If you can see it, it's not faith. If it's tangible and if it's moving in the physical realm, it's not the faith God is talking about. That's just human faith anybody can have. Anybody gonna believe something that they're looking at? I believe you sitting there. How come? Because I see you. And that's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about that. He's saying it's the evidence, it's the substance, so it's real. Even though it's in the spiritual realm, it's real. And it has evidence, it's provable, but it's not yet seen. The whole point of faith is to grab something out of the unseen realm and bring it down to the visible realm. So you never start with what you see to determine whether you have faith. That's called sight. It's a whole nother word. And because we don't live by faith, in other words, because that's not how we roll, that's not our flow, we don't see much grace. He says, in addition to all, above all things, take on the shield of faith. Why do I need the shield of faith? Faith. Acting like God is telling the truth. Acting like it is so even when it's not so, in order that it might be so simply because God said so. You go to the doctor because there's typically something wrong you can't fix. Because usually you started off with over-the-counter. You started off with human ability. You started off with your own mind could conjure up. You started off with what you could take care of yourself. So you went to the doctor and you went to the pharmacy, you went to Walgreens or some other pharmacy and you got some, something for your stomach, antacid, or you got something because you were going to do the best you can to make life better. But your best wasn't working. So you call the doctor. You tell the doctor, Doc, I've got a problem. My stomach hurts. The doctor's going to hear your call, but he's not going to take for granted your problem. He's not going to assume what you think is wrong is what's wrong. Now, you've talked about how you feel because you talked about the pain. But in his mind, there could be something else causing what you think is a stomach ache. So he's going to do a battery of tests to ascertain the truth about what's really wrong, creating the pain that you're now experiencing. Because all you know is the pain, you don't know what the real problem is yet until somebody who knows more than you assesses the situation, who can tell you what the truth is about what you feel. All you know is I feel a little something, but obviously I don't know enough because I couldn't fix it. So I'm going to you, Doc, for you to tell me what the real deal is. I need the truth. Why? Because until you get the truth, you can't fix the problem. See, as long as you're satisfied with antacids, and that's not your problem, then you're not dealing with the truth, although you think you're dealing with the truth. You're just dealing with limited knowledge. But the doctor has information you don't have. He comes out and he says, oh, this is the problem, which was more than just a general upset stomach. He says, this is the problem. He pulls out a sheet of paper called a prescription, and he writes on it words you do not understand. In fact, if you can read his writing, he's not a real doctor. Because one of the ways you know a real doctor is a real doctor is he can't write. You have this piece of paper and he says, take this for your real problem. Because those antacids you were taking is not your real problem. Take this. Maybe he's discovered an ulcer. You take a piece of paper that you don't understand. To a pharmacy. You give it to the pharmacist, whom you do not know. The pharmacist goes back there with a whole bevy of medicines and starts putting your stuff together. That man could be putting strychnine and giving it to you because you don't know. The only reason you're doing this is you know he's qualified. You know, he's got a qualification. You don't know it based on what you're seeing, because what you're seeing may not be what it really is. And you don't even understand the paper, so you can't even test what he's doing by what's written in the paper. You got to believe that what he is offering is what's on the paper. So you've taken the prescription, you've gone to the pharmacist, he's giving you the medicine. Now you've done all that, you still got an upset stomach. And the reason why you have an upset stomach is the reason it was written and the reason you went to the pharmacy wasn't to get it, read it, and deliver it. It was to get it, read it, deliver it, get it, and take it. Until you take it, you've not fulfilled obedience. And if you don't fulfill obedience, you're not going to get better. Because your way was solving the symptom, not solving the problem. See, many of us, we come to church and we get the word and we say, well, I don't understand all that. I don't understand all that. I haven't studied Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic, and I don't fully understand all that, but I know the one who gave it knows what he's talking about, because he's a pro, he's a doctor. If there is no acting on what's prescribed, there is no faith that has been exhibited. And if there is no faith that has been exhibited, stop complaining to the doctor, his stuff not working. We've got a lot of people complaining to God, your way doesn't work, and we haven't taken pill first. Well, we took one pill and there are 20 in the bottle. He said take one every 4 hours. We take one every 4 days and wonder why it's not working. Because we have not exhibited faith. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is not a discussion. Faith is an action taken based on the authorization of somebody who knows what he's talking about. Last time I checked, God knows what he's talking about. Why do you do this? So that you will be able to extinguish all the fiery darts of the evil one. He says the reason you do this, the reason why faith, that shield that you ought to crouch behind, because it can handle anything thrown your way. All the fiery darts of the devil. Notice, not all the darts or arrows. The word dart means arrows. The Roman shield is made of wood, but it's wrapped in leather or some kind of animal skin. When they went out to war, they dipped it in water. They knew that people were going to throw spears at them and that they were going to shoot at them. And that some would dip their tip of their arrow in pitch and light it. That's why he calls fiery arrows. That's an arrow that's been set aflame. You remember cowboys and Indians in the movies or in television? And the wagon train would be going around, and then the Indians would attack the wagon train. Then the wagon train would get in a little circle. Then the cowboys would get behind the wagons and start shooting at the Indians. And the Indians go, whoa, 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 whoa. They riding around, and they shooting arrows at the cowboys. Well, now, it really wasn't a fair fight because, at least in the earlier days, the cowboys had all the guns, and the Indians had all the arrows. Now, that's not a fair fight. But there would always be this one smart aleck Indian. He would dip the tip of an arrow into some pitch. He would light it. So now it's a fiery dart. It's an arrow that's been lit up. He then pulls back the bow and shoots. That arrow is not for a cowboy. That arrow is for the canvas of a wagon. Because he knows if he can burn down the canvas, he can expose the cowboy. And now once exposed, I don't need fiery arrows. I just need arrows. Fiery darts are meant to dismantle you so that now you become open for everything else he wants to shoot your way. He says the shield of faith is so strong that not only cannot arrows get you, arrows that's been put on fire can't even burn you down. He says the shield of faith is staggering. Why? Because faith enters into the realm of grace and accesses God at a whole nother level. It accesses God. That's why 1 John 5:4 says we are overcomers by faith. In order to be an overcomer, there's got to be something to overcome. Maybe you're trying to overcome joblessness or finances or emotional fire of the mind or emotional depression, or maybe it's relational fires that you're going through, or maybe it's sin and temptation that has set you aflame. Whatever the fire happens to be, he says faith can put it out. Faith can put out the fire. But you've got to define faith God's way, not your way. Any weightlifter who can lift 500 pounds doesn't have a problem with 100 pounds. If you can lift 500 pounds and somebody says, well, can you lift this 100-pound bag? Ain't nothing but a thing, because if you can handle 500, 100 is no big deal. On the cross, Jesus Christ handled the sins of the whole world. The whole world, for all people, for all time, all sin was pinned on Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago on the cross. All the sins of all mankind for all world was put on Jesus Christ on that day. So if he could handle all the sins and all the circumstances of all men for all time, what did you tell me your problem was? What did you tell me your situation was? What did you tell me your need was? And you're going to imply the God who can handle it for the whole world on the cross, yours is a little bit too heavy. No, what's missing is faith in it, not power for it. What he is suggesting to us is that if we will take faith seriously as God defines it, you will experience victory as you've never had it before. I will never forget it. I will never forget it. This is lodged in my mind. The 1996 Olympics. Her name was Carrie Struggs. She was a gymnast, a little tiny girl. The United States gymnast team was in second place. Carrie Struggs was the last gymnast to go, and she had to make a certain score to overcome the first place team. I don't remember whether it was Romania or Soviet Union, but whoever it was, she had to do this certain 9-point something to overcome so that the United States would win the gold medal. So all the pressure is on little Carrie. Carrie stands, and Carrie looks down because she has to vault. She has to go, propel herself, flip over the horse, and come back down standing up to get a high enough score. Little Carrie takes off and she's running. She hits the spring. She hits the horse. She flips over and she comes down, but she comes down wrong. And she horrifically twists her ankle so that she cannot even walk. She falls down. She cannot even walk. Low score. You could hear the hush over the crowd, particularly of the Americans. Oh, no. You could see her team wince. And Carrie began to weep. Because this whole thing is riding on her. She has one more jump. One more jump. But she can't walk. And to do this, you got to be able to run. Jump, hit, put pressure down and jump, flip, and you got to land standing up to get a high enough score to win. She's got one more jump. So she's there weeping and trying to stand up. Barely can stand up on the one leg. Can't put any pressure on the second leg. Over in the corner was her coach, Bella Corolla, the famous gymnast coach. He looked at Carrie crying because they couldn't go meet. He says, Carrie, look at me. Don't take your eyes off of me. You look at me. I know you're hurting. I know you're in pain, but you keep your attention focused on me. You look at me right now. I know you're hurting. I know you're in pain. I know you can't walk. But girl, you look at me because I want to tell you you can do it. I know you don't think you can. I know you're hurting. You can barely walk. Don't look at your foot. Look at me. Don't look at your circumstance. I know, because if you look down there, all you see is more defeat. I want you to keep your eyes on me. Now you go back there, girl, and you do this thing one more time, but when you go back there, your full attention is to be on me. Little Carrie goes around, limps to the starting place, and you can see her cast her eyes over to her old coach to look at him, because she's got to piggyback off of his faith, because her circumstances don't give her the power to piggyback off of hers. But in her pain and her anguish, she now looks down, half running and half hobbling. She makes her way down. Some of you saw it. She leaps up. She flips over the horse. She comes down. Whop, boom. She goes, whop, boom, immediately lifts up this hand. After both feet have landed, she lifts up this foot. She stands there wiggling, but stands in place. The place goes absolutely crazy because she landed on two, even though she could only stand on one. And the United States gymnastics team won first place. You know why they won? Because there was somebody in the corner who said, don't look at your situation. Don't look at your circumstance. I know you feel it. I know it's real, but keep your eyes on me. I think if the author of Hebrews here would say, keep your eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, he would say, don't look at your situation. You can't ignore it because it hurts. Because if you'll keep your eyes on me, even if you got the limp, you're going to land right and you're going to be able to hold your ground. The shield of faith, running on the truth, will give you the ability to overcome the attacks.
Các bạn ơi, chúng mình hãy cùng nhau ra sân chơi đùa nào. Còn bây giờ, tớ sẽ hỏi, còn các bạn sẽ trả lời tớ nhé. Tay bạn đâu, tay bạn đâu? Tay đây, tay đây. Nào mình cùng vỗ thật đều. Chân bạn đâu, chân bạn đâu? Chân đây, chân đây. Nào mình cùng nhảy lò cò. Nhảy nào các bạn ơi. Giơ hai tay lên nào, bạn ơi, cùng nhau múa cùi. Đôi chân chạy vòng vòng, cùng nhau đuổi bắt chuột tìm. Giơ hai tay lên nào, bạn ơi, cùng nhau múa cùi. Đôi chân chạy vòng vòng bên nhau thật là vui. Tay chân đây. Nào mình cùng nhảy lò cò. Nhảy nào